to So That Reminds Me, Reminder Publishing's bi-weekly podcast discussing Western Mass news. My name is LeBel.
And I'm Tyler Garnett.
And we'll be your host for today's episode. On this week's episode, we are going to be talking with James from WAMC about some of the upcoming November 4th elections in our coverage area. We are recording this after the fact, but we recorded today with Chris and Dennis as well. Mm-hmm. And we were joined by James from WAMC to discuss the election stuff, because obviously there's elections going on in a lot of our coverage areas. Tyler covers Holyoke and Chicopee, so there's elections going on there. Northampton, Easthampton, Westfield, Agawam, West Springfield. There's a lot going on, so.
Yeah, there really is. So it is quite a lengthy episode. I always say this at the beginning in full transparency. We're doing the intro after the episode, so the episode is a little bit over an hour long, but there is, a lot of communities have mayoral races, a lot of interesting city council races, a couple school committee races. Interesting and invested, I feel like, is a word we said a lot during these races. And, we mean it because a lot of us have kept an eye on some of these races for the past few months. We mentioned during it as well for the past month, if you've been keeping track in the reminder papers or online, all the staff writers have been doing Q&As, sending 3 questions to all the candidates, and Dennis mentioned that a lot of the candidates did get back and respond, which is fantastic to kind of hear that platform. Mm-hmm. Some of the articles have pictures with them in case you don't know what the candidate looks like. So, tis the season of the election, so it's been busy, but it's been nice to get to know all these candidates, and I think the conversation we have is really informative.
It is, and obviously on election night, the reporters will be out there waiting to hear the news of who's becoming the next mayor for these towns, city council, school committee, all of the races. There's so much going on, so stay tuned for upcoming coverage and the reminder to see the results from the election. But aside from election stuff, Tyler, what's new with you?
Nothing too crazy. I did get engaged a couple weeks ago, so that was my exciting news.
Yes, very exciting.
Yep, popped the question after me and my girlfriend been dating for a long time, so that has been something exciting and something nice to celebrate over these past few weeks.
That's awesome.
Which, I don't think I have anything else besides that. How's everything else going with you? Chris does mention during the podcast, this is Lauren's last podcast. She will be leaving us at the end of this week for a new role in the DA's office, so we do wish her luck. But I kind of, stole the spotlight.
Yeah, no,
what's new with you?
That's what's new. This Friday is my last day at the Reminder. I've been here for 5 years now, so it's very bittersweet. I loved working here, and I'm going to miss all the people, everything that I've learned. It's been great, so.
Yeah,
all good things.
Yeah, and I'm sure you'll be sending us plenty of information of things going on in DA's office, and you won't be too far. But it's gonna be different. But we definitely wish you the best of luck.
Yeah, thank you.
With that, before we get into our lovely discussion, we will be right back after a few short messages.
We get it. You're busy, but you want to be connected to your local community. If you're not reading The Reminder, Western Mass's free weekly newspaper, you're missing out on the heartbeat of your town. Stay in the loop with all the latest buzz, from local stories to community updates and exciting events. It's all in The Reminder. Just log on to thereminder.com and dive into the hometown news you love. To subscribe to receive The Reminder at your home, call 413-788-1316. Don't miss a beat. Your town, your stories, your community. For over 60 years. The Reminder. We are hometown news. Are you hearing wedding bells? Take a deep breath. Go Local Magazine has your back. Our wedding special section is your one-stop resource to the best in local photographers, caterers, florists, venues, and so much more. Get inspired by the couples who share their special day with us. Then check out the experts who created their perfect event. It's all here and all at your fingertips in Go Local.
All right, so we have the whole crew here from So That Reminds Me this week, plus we have a guest as we are going to be talking about some of the interesting races in this year's election cycle. So, first off, guest, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me. Yeah, no, it's me, James Paleologopoulos, WAMC's Pioneer Valley Bureau Chief. It's a real pleasure to be here, guys.
Well, we're excited to be able to collaborate with you and get a little bit of an outside perspective, outside of our newsroom perspective, on some of these races. So welcome. And I also just want to make a quick mention that we have currently an inside perspective, but is going to become an outside perspective. We are sad to say that this is Lauren LeBel's final podcast with us. Lauren is moving on to the DA's office, so congratulations, and certainly welcome. You're welcome back.
Thank you.
Anytime.
Thank you. I will miss everybody here.
All right, so we're going to kick things off, and we really want to make sure that we are having a good conversation here about some of the things that have struck us as we dive into some of these races, and we've covered these races from the beginning, and really talk about what has struck us about it, whether it's something as simple as what the interest has been in a position, to what some of the talking points have been in the race. So we're going to get started off in a very interesting community in Northampton, where the mayoral race is between incumbent Mayor Gina Louise Shar, and Jillian Duclos. Now, we've had the incumbent mayor since 2022, and she was also a city councilor prior to that. She has helped establish the new Division of Community Care, the new Climate Action Department. There's been a lot of movement in affordable housing units, new firefighter positions, and a 32% increase in the annual appropriation to the Northampton Public Schools. These are all things that she touted in a recent Q&A published in our paper. Duclos is a local business leader who has 20 years experience spanning every sector, she says. In the Q&A that I mentioned before, she said she wants to build a stronger Northampton together, and she plans to meet people where they are. So this is an interesting race from the standpoint of you have somebody who has, I think at times, been pretty popular, but has faced a fair amount of challenge in this reelection cycle.
Absolutely. No, it's to step in here. It's for first and foremost, we're now in now it's two phase. First there were four, now there's two. The primaries sorted things out. This was a highly contested race, and it also featured Shara collecting a significant voter share all the same. Duclos was in a distant second place, but Dan Bryandell was not far behind. The fourth candidate, former Northampton police officer, Dombrowski, very distant fourth. Shara, I want to say 45 to 50% of the voting share during the preliminary, and this was a very active preliminary on top of it. Very affirming, just the sheer amount of pull that Shara still seems to have. But Duclos posting over 1,800 votes, I believe, being able to build positions, branching out to the various districts after being involved in the Downtown Northampton Association for so long. It's a very competitive race so far.
Yeah, and going off of that, I just pulled up the results from the preliminary election, and Shar received 2,991 votes. So that was just over 50% of the vote in the four-way race. And then Duclos received the 1,510 votes. So again, Shar received, a significant amount in the preliminary. So it will be interesting to see.
Yeah, no, very competitive. May have been a little too much on my side. My apologies for that. No, but all the same, we do see Duclos going out and really speaking to a whole lot of folks. She has a lot of voters to go after. Add in Bryandell and Dombrowski's totals, and you've got a pretty competitive race, but that's saying those supporters will go over to that particular candidate. It's been the subject. This race has been the subject of multiple forums so far. I was at one last night at Bridge Street School. There's going to be another one at the Bombyx Center, and there's a lot to be said about what the big issues are. There's a lot of them. I feel like me trying to tackle all of them is not fair to everybody else.
Now, one of the things that I found interesting here is, Duclos is facing an uphill challenge. Even if Shara was only able to collect less than 50% of the vote, that means you have to get the plurality of all of those other candidates who voted for another challenger in the preliminary. And we've seen in other races, especially Springfield was a very good example of that in the last mayoral race, that is nothing close to a guarantee.
Absolutely. And frankly, the council races are also playing a pretty big role in this as well. We're seeing coalitions being built. We see Ben Spencer and Garrick Perry I don't mean to wade into that's a whole different animal, so I'm not gonna tug everyone into that, but I will say we do see Perry and Spencer with Shara a lot, and we see all of these Support Our Schools endorsed candidates spending a lot of time with Duclos. That's probably Duclos's most surefire path. Now, I'm a reporter, not a political analyst, but seizing on the big campaign issues that have come up so far, whether it's school funding, whether it's thoughts on a former church downtown that was purchased by the city a few years ago for a few $1 million, and developing it into a climate resistance hub that's stalled out quite a bit. These are being seized on, and I did see this during the forum last night. Shara seems to have rebuttals for all of these things. As you mentioned earlier, historic funding just only going up under Shara's leadership. As Support Our Schools would tell you, though, it's not enough, and we've seen positions cut over the last two. Actually, hold on. I don't believe there were any cuts in the traditional sense this past budget. Rather we saw retirements not replaced. Mm-hmm. This is a whole thing that I don't want to, just it's mud up to your knees in terms of what I'm stepping into right now. But we see Duclos taking up these positions. We see Shara having rebuttals, and it's really up to the voters of Northampton how defining they are.
Now, one more thing before we move on to the next race is with Duclos's business connections. Do you guys see any connection with what's been happening with the planning of downtown in Northampton and how that might affect businesses?
So, with regards to this is picture Main Street,
yes.
Man. It's and that comes up a whole awful lot. That's another one of those key issues. What I do notice is the Downtown Northampton Association not really expressing opposition to the project itself. In fact, I would say they seem to share views and attitudes, or at the very least the vibe. I mean, I'm 33. I think I can still use the word vibe, but either way, because while controversial for the length and the scale, you drive down that stretch of road in downtown Northampton. It's far more interesting than it has to be. As Mayor Shara will tell you, there's a lot of crashes that happen in that particular stretch.
I avoid it.
Absolutely. But truckers embrace it, and I love the chaos. But I will. Well, it's part of a major state roadway, anyways. But it is interesting that we see DNA not directly opposing it, but we do see Duclos questioning it. As former candidate Dan Bryandell found out, there's no going back on this. The money's committed. The state's funding it. The majority of it. It's going to happen. It did get pushed back to 2026, though. But we have Duclos asking questions. And that business relationship, those relationships, that empathy for local businesses, that is there. It shows up a lot in the campaign. Not to say Shara's not empathetic, but that's a pillar for sure.
All right, and we did touch a little bit on the city council races, but is there anything else we wanted to add about the city council before we move on to another interesting Hampshire County race?
I will say that part of the forum I was at yesterday involved Ward 3. So we have incumbent Quaverly Rothenberg going against the now retired Northwestern DA Communications Director, Communications person. Well,
yeah.
We can call Lori a flack, I think. I don't think she'd mind too much. Also a former editor at the Daily Hampshire Gazette. She had to deal with my freelance articles. I don't think anyone has to. I put her through a lot. But either way, suffice to say, that is a very competitive race because I don't think it's too out there to suggest Rothenberg is one of the most prominent critics of Mayor Shera and the city's policies as a whole. A lot of advocacy for her ward going on. Loisel also is positioned, also cares about Ward 3 a whole awful lot from what I can tell, at least at the forum I was at yesterday. A little bit more Shera aligned. I was at the preliminary election results. I was at actually both mayoral candidates, their preliminary result watch party. And, after a while, it became pretty clear Shera was going to win by the commanding lead that she had. So all of her supporters, in turn, were very, very interested in Ward 3. And they were very, very interested in seeing Loisel collect the amount of votes that she did in advance, and Rothenberg as well.
So to kind of go off of that a little bit, with Rothenberg specifically, has there been any, I know there's been a little bit of controversy with some of the actions that she's taken. Has that affected the race at all, do you think, or...
Well, I see these forums are civil, so there's not really and I noticed this across our coverage area. No one really wants to have a feisty local television debate like in years past. The censure vote that Rothenberg was the subject of, I believe, earlier this year, that certainly shows up in Facebook posts. But I would say more often than not, it's Rothenberg's intense advocacy for Northampton public schools. But it's more or less that. It's a feisty race. Yeah. It's just great for democracy when you think about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I will say one outlet that is very interested in feisty debates is Focus Springfield and our friend Mike Dobbs. When especially the Adam Gomez Mallow Brown incident, we'll call it, where Mallow Brown actually.
You're cooked, bro.
You're cooked, bro. Yeah, he was at that point. We'll talk a little bit about Councilor Brown in a little bit.
Or was it you messed up? I'm trying to remember.
No, he said you're cooked, bro.
Yeah, he said yes. Yeah. Well, when you step in it the way that he did in that moment, there's no other way to put it, I suppose. But moving on to another really interesting Hampshire County mayoral race, it's Easthampton, where you've got three candidates. You've got Salem Derby, who's currently the interim mayor because, of course, Nicole LaChapelle has left the position. See you later. Something that we always felt was coming, I think, but that's an entirely different. She always felt like she was on a track to.
See her at a lot of conferences and summits.
Yeah.
Not necessarily mayoral related all the time, but yeah.
The current mayoral executive assistant, Lindsay Sekula, and city councilor at large, TJ Terrell. Really interesting race all the way around. I think all three of these candidates pack certain things in their background that are intriguing. Derby has background in education and leadership training. He's been on the city council for more than 2 decades, and obviously now he's serving as the interim mayor. Sekula has worked in the mayor's office for more than 7 years and has that firsthand experience with drafting budgets and addressing issues within the city. Terrell is a city councilor. He's chair of the Public Safety Committee, and he's a member of the Rules and Government Relations Committee, among other things. So you have three. I think that it's really interesting when you have three candidates who each present some really strong strengths, for lack of a better word off the top of my head. Makes it really, really intriguing.
Yeah, I believe at one point there was 4.
Oh, pour one out for Bob LaFerrier. Absolutely.
But I find it interesting because for a long time, Trent Lavakis, our Easthampton reporter, he was talking with interim mayor Salem Derby, and he was telling, every time Trent would ask him, he would say, I don't want to do this. I don't want to become the mayor. And so then when he announced his bid to become mayor, that was definitely Very interesting.
Absolutely. No, it was a real, and he brings us up on the campaign trail quite a lot. There was a lot of, I can do this moments. And, he seems to have seized on them. He also has suits. He's broken out the suits. Derby's casual wear was like that, really down to earth, but like over the last few council meetings and the forums, he's broken out the 3-piece suits. And, it reminds me I have to get fitted because I'm getting married in November. But all the same, thank you. All right, that's wonderful. I will just follow up real quick on Bob LaFerrier, though. Yes, this was almost a 4-way race in a city with frank choice voting, and Bob. I actually was able to interview him hours after he handed in his signatures. It was a very fun interview, and I will say that of all the candidates I've spoken to, he seemed to seize on taxes and fees most specifically. And he also brought up the concept of converting former school lots into parking lots to try and deal with the city's, it's a very heavily trafficked city. Easthampton's a popular place to be. I live there, full disclosure. It's very nice. But despite that, signature complications and not really a big window of time to get everything remedied, and also the fact that Bob's a working guy, works in an electrical supply company in Holyoke. So, pour one out for Bob. Having said that, we did see the school parking lot idea come to fruition. Derby put that forward. And it's interesting because I have heard that at least one campaign has spoken to Bob already, and in his emails with me, Bob said he was going to go to the mayor's office to talk about the signature issue. So one can't help but wonder if those signs came down pretty quickly, to Bob's credit as well. All the same, we got Derby. We've got Sakula, the former executive assistant, a lot of time in LaChapelle's office, I believe 6 or 7 years.
7 years.
7 years. Budget's coming together, a lot of proposals. We can credit her for the website as well. You don't really get to say that in a lot of cases. And then we got JT Terrell. We have heads the Little League Series, Little League Association in Easthampton. Very community sports heavy guy. I believe he's actually the I don't know if equipment manager is his formal title at the Williston Northampton School, but absolutely, all three coming from different perspectives and a lot of pros, a lot of specialities.
Now, have you noticed anything kind of bubbling to the surface as a key issue that has been targeted in this race by either a specific candidate or something that's been a topic of conversation by all the candidates throughout the race?
Yeah, housing comes up a lot. And I think it's not just because the abundance theory arrived on the scene via, I forget the name of that book that you should see at every airport now. But housing is a hot topic in Western Mass. You have Wayfinders and UMass Donahue Institute releasing a report just a few weeks ago saying even if we do everything right at the pace we're doing it, 17,000 units short by 2035. Easthampton is a kind of a microcosm of this issue. They've seen their housing prices skyrocket. Rents have gone up. We've seen it's a hotbed for tenant associations. At least 3 have formed over the last few months to deal with out-of-state owners. And the city council is addressing it. Well, addressing is doing a lot of work in that sense. But it comes up in city business. We've seen Sakula stand with some of these tenant association advocates. We've seen Derby speak a lot about housing. And we've seen Terrell speak about wanting to let the people who grew up here stay in Easthampton. And all three of them are enthusiastic about housing projects that are in the pipeline. But we do see some differentiation. Sakula talks a lot about smart zoning and building areas that foster housing, but also micro businesses and the city's art scene. Derby kind of says something similar. He speaks a lot about connecting the downtown area. He says there's effectively multiple downtowns in Easthampton thanks to the mill rehabilitations and just the other business districts and so on and so forth. And, that's probably what I've noticed the most is Sakula and Derby are intimately involved in city politics, what makes Easthampton tick, so on and so forth. JT is still serving his first term, I believe, and that kind of showed up in the forum that I've been to a lot of forums. There's been a lot of forums, but you see Sakula and Derby coming up with very specific proposals, very specific projects they're enthusiastic about, and then we see Councilor Terrell speak a little bit more broadly, a little bit more open to different concepts, not really locked in like the other two are. And we see him invoking really community spirit in place of that more often than not. So that's how I read it, I suppose. I'm supposed to be impartial. I think I'm impartial by saying that. Either way.
Yeah, it should be interesting, especially because there wasn't a preliminary, so we don't know what. But I spoke about this with Trent, and he said possibly Derby could take it, but it would be interesting to see who will become the next mayor.
So we've got a few council races here too. There's the at-large city council race. There are 5 candidates going for 4 seats. And we don't, but in terms of the precincts, there are only 2 precincts that have races this year. Now, in Precinct 4, Robert Parent, is that, there was a Robert Parent who used to be with the DPW here in East Longmeadow. Is this the same guy, or do you know what his background is? Is that?
You know what, I don't.
It was a name that popped up to me. It's just like, could be 2 Robert Parents.
Could be.
But especially the spelling, that was just something that kind of caught my eye.
Isn't there also a Robert Parent in Westfield with a different spelling?
Different spelling, also going for a city council spot.
That's
Yes. But,
Where are they coming from?
Robert Parent is going against Amanda Newton, and in Precinct 5, we've got Tamara Smith, challenged by Catherine Wazinski. Did I get that correct? It's something like that. But
Isn't there Wazinski on the council right now, isn't there? The vice president?
Oh, Kwasinski.
Kwasinski. Oh,
there we go. Okay.
Different part of Lithuania or Poland.
So we have, it's interesting how there's this. I always find it interesting when you have these precincts that are hotly contested versus ones that are, sometimes year after year uncontested. So, just a little aside there.
And we will be back after a few more messages.
Looking to reach the 60-plus market? Look no further than the fall issue of Prime. This quarter, Prime explores a meaningful retirement, whether it is entrepreneurism, volunteering, or your next passion project, not to mention the 50-plus Job Seekers program for those who need a financial boost. Plus, practical advice to extend the life of your laptops, busting common estate planning myths, and the lowdown on must-have vaccines. Let Prime Magazine be your guide. Prime, your best life now.
We're going to jump down into Hampden County now with Springfield. And Springfield, of course, does not have a mayoral race, but that does not mean that there are not interesting things going on in Springfield. We've got lots going on with the city council, especially. And we'll start at the beginning with Ward 1, which has certainly been honestly quiet now, but
Very loud at the beginning.
right,
Oh, yeah.
a few months back, not so quiet. So what are your impressions, guys, of where this race stands right now and how some of that heat from earlier has kind of simmered down here?
Well, I think it's mostly simmered down because neither candidate is speaking at this point. We saw Josiah Gonzalez. It's obviously the race between Josiah Gonzalez and Maria Perez. Ryan Fair, who was covering the race at the time, he said that he saw Josiah at a candidates night back in August. That was pretty much it. But obviously this all started with Perez's kind of firing from the New North Citizens Council, and then a not 100% true press release that was sent out and was later found out to have been potentially.
That was fun to report out.
Yeah.
That was great. That was great. I'm sorry, continue.
No, but it was linked to Gonzalez, and then he stepped down from the New North Citizens Council as well. So yeah, that was kind of the big explosion, and then Perez filed a suit for wrongful termination as well. So yeah, that was kind of the big kind of powder keg moment for this race, and since then it's been.
It's interesting with everybody being as quiet as they are. I mean, how do voters assess how they're going to then act when they're in the seat, one way or the other?
Yeah, this really feels like one of those times where it's up to the voters to really look at all the information that's out there and make their own decision on it. Because both candidates obviously aren't really speaking to anybody, and just like kind of looking at, maybe track record or what they've done previously and what they're trying to do now. But
no, absolutely. No, that press release fiasco, man, chasing that down, and they were dropping it on the weekend. Like that's just dandy from a reporter's perspective. No, we have Perez seek, I believe, $1 million in damages from New North. So I have to check in on the docket.
I believe that's what it is.
Yeah, I have to check in on the docket to see where that suit is. But yeah, a lot of very detailed charges, relying a lot on the local media as well, and that docket, and it was intense. It was intense. The idea of the accusation of Josiah literally asking for the laptop of a New North Citizens Council member and then typing out the message that he did.
Then the actual press release saying that there was no embezzlement.
Insinuations,
saying that there was no embezzlement, everybody's going to think that's what it was.
And again, so this was I think dumpster fire is not an inaccurate term to describe that. The silence has been, I'm not going to say eerie. I mean, both parties were at the Puerto Rican Day Parade. Yep. Both parties show up at various community events. I have yet to see a formal response to the lawsuit from Josiah as well. He is named in it, I believe. So that is something that's going to have to come up at one point or another.
I believe the director and the organization itself are all named in the lawsuit.
Yeah, right now, the council has a acting director in, I believe, the Springfield City Clerk, Oyola. I can't quite. I don't know. Gladys. Yes. Either way, my apologies for taking us off track there. Now, a very interesting race. We have Josiah's experience on the school committee to work off of. He is a very passionate and direct advocate for what he sees as right and wrong. We saw that play out in the superintendent search, which was very interesting and fun to report on as well. And we see Perez as a fierce advocate for her part of Springfield, and it's gone on for decades. She's formed groups, she's formed campaigns, and any worthwhile thing that happens in that district, you usually see Perez at one way or another. Having said that, remote at most city council meetings, so that's very fun to try and chase down for interviews. But when you get a mic in front of her, she speaks. That's nice.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on to the next contested one, and while Mallow Brown may have been cooked in the Senate race, he has not when he's been challenged for city council. He's facing off against Willie Naylor. And Mallow has previously survived contested races in 2023 and 2021 where there was a recount, and that he faced off against Janai McDonald, who he had beaten 2 years prior in replacing E. Henry Twiggs. So, he has staying power in that Ward 4 city council seat. I think it's interesting that he... if I recall, he had multiple challengers for this seat, and he always seems to have somebody who is eyeing his seat, but he's been able to come out on top so far.
Absolutely, I believe there were a lot of lessons he pulled away from that state Senate campaign. I think the vote totals in his own district during that particular race weren't great either. So, but having said that, no, you're absolutely right. He has always taken on a field that is, these candidates mount notable campaigns. You see them out there in the field a whole awful lot. I will say that I believe Mr. Naylor has run for a counselor at large position before in 2023.
I think you're correct.
Yeah. And I think... Actually, I think in case with one very, very notable exception, we're seeing a lot of returning candidates challenging various Springfield city councilors. Actually, two. My apologies, Josiah is waiting in for the first time. I think I'm trying to get at the next particular candidate we want to speak about. But I'm very curious to see what kind of support and I suppose coalition Mr. Naylor might be building up. Mallow Brown has been around. You see him in council meetings speaking up for his district over Eversource, or maybe another company trying to encroach on a street or so on and so forth. A lot of questions whenever something might infect even the most seemingly mundane thing in the district. But yeah, I'm very interested to see how this plays out.
Yeah, I am too. I think one of the interesting things is we talked about preliminary elections where obviously like Shar had a big lead on hers, but in Mallow Brown's case, he had 44%, while Naylor had 32% in theirs, and there were two other candidates that got 12 and 10%. So it'll be interesting to see where that additional 22% ends up. I'm sure, like most races, it'll probably end up a bit between, but I think that's something to keep an eye on. And then also, we got to mention that the Springfield preliminary election was very low voter turnout. I think they got 3% of the vote. It was like 1,500 people out of 44,000 had voted.
That checks out.
Yeah.
That checks out. Same thing in Holyoke, just very, very low.
Yeah.
So low that I think a certain former city councilor in Russia thought his vote would probably matter a lot more. In an attempt to, I'm not going to wade into that, but I believe that bid was rejected. All the same.
That's a great story, listeners. You got to look that up.
All right. So you made mention that Willie Naylor had gone for an at-large seat previously. We've seen a little bit of a trend here where you've got some people who 2 years ago went for at-large seats and missed, and now they're taking on these ward races. You've got in Ward 5, Edward Nunez taking on LeVar Click-Bruce. Also, Jerry Martin, who finished 6th, with the top 5 getting in November 2023. He's facing off against Tim Allen. Tim Allen in Ward 7, of course, has been, I don't know how long enough. He may have been, forgive me if somebody listening can correct me on this, but has he been the Ward 7 counselor since they reinstated ward representation in Springfield? It may be. It's been a long time that he's been there. He's very entrenched. So I'm very interested in some of these races where people who took swings at large seats are now focusing more on those, those more one-on-one opportunities. Anybody want to speak to that at all? Or is that just going to hang there? We can let that marinate.
Well, no, I think
Marination's good.
It's definitely one of those things where
adds flavor. Go ahead.
You'll see somebody obviously swing for the fences with an at-large seat, and then they'll say, "Hey, maybe I had a good turnout for my ward," and trying to turn that into a ward seat as opposed to, seeking the at-large again.
Now, one thing that I thought was interesting with Edward Nunez was, and I believe that he told this to Ryan, was, I don't have any. Basically, not so much that he had no critiques of LeVar Click-Bruce's performance, but he, said, "Hey, LeVar's been a good city councilor, but I want that seat." So it's interesting that especially these places where you're seeing Tim Allen's been there forever. He's on the finance committee. He's one of those few
professor
who has the ear of the mayor. There was a couple years ago where he got an extra $1 million, which doesn't seem like all that much, but when the mayor wasn't initially willing to give that up, that was something that Tim Allen was able to get. So you have not only people who are they're entering these races like you talked about, but at the same time they're going after pretty popular candidates. They're not going after the low-hanging fruit. So that's interesting to me.
I also think it's kind of an interesting double-edged sword because obviously these aren't entrenched incumbents, but then you also look at Michael Fenton, Melvin Edwards, and Zeta Govan, and none of them are facing a challenger. And they're kind of in similar situations where they've been entrenched, they've done a lot of work, but nobody's really making that step on them. So something else to think about too.
Now, another one that has been interesting is Victor Davila in Ward 6 is facing off against Mary Johnson. Now, Davila is someone who seems to be perpetually facing competition, very similar to Mallow Brown in Ward 4. But this has proven to be one of the more interesting of the ward races.
No, absolutely. We see Davila committing pretty hard with, at the very least, the camera he bought. He's started doing video podcasts to advertise various things going on in his ward. It's very... his challenger's name eludes me.
Mary Johnson.
Mary Johnson.
Yes.
No, we see Johnson's been pretty stalwart. Actually, I believe I saw her doing some door knocking when I was driving home from Western New England University, where my office is based, last week. It's a very... I'm very interested to see how this plays out for a number of reasons, because when you watch Davila in the council chambers, you see a figure he's asking again and again for presenters, people proposing, so on and so forth, to effectively repeat themselves and just go through the minutiae of what they're putting forward. And it's not because I don't think Davila struggled to hear them. I think it's because he has a penchant for getting you to explain what it is exactly that you're doing. And from a reporter's standpoint, that's extremely helpful just for transcription purposes. But also, that's a kind of advocacy you don't see a whole awful lot. All the same, his opponent during the forums established that this is a ward that she cares a lot about, and that getting out and listening to people is a big part of what she's looking to do. And that's not to say Davila doesn't listen either, but it's kind of like LeVar Clickers. We're seeing a lot more like positives and not quite as much sniping as maybe we would have in yesteryear, or maybe I'm not in the right Facebook groups.
Yeah, and I mean, Ward 6 is an interesting ward within the city, both demographically and historically, and it historically has been pretty active politically. So I think that could be part of the reason why you're constantly seeing challenge for that seat. Mm. We also have city council is at large is being a big race. Got 8 candidates seeking 5 seats. The quote unquote headliner, so to speak, with my air quote fingers that nobody can see because this is an audio podcast. Justin Hurst, who ran for mayor, he's looking to make a comeback to the city council, and he's already basically confirmed that he's looking at another run at mayor. You've also got Nicole Coakley and Juan J. Latore, who's been a previous candidate, going against Sean Curran, Jose Delgado, Tracy Whitfield, Kateri Walsh, and Brian Centinello. So honestly, a lot of recognizable names. So if you're just going by name recognition, well, you're going to have a hard time here. So there are some interesting characters and platforms going on in this race.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I've seen Whitfield very enthusiastic about Hurst's return. I feel like that's... I just wanted to get that out in the open. I will also note that of the incumbents, I noticed that Curran and Delgado have all... So this past 2 years that I followed the Springfield City Council, like ordinance-wise, legislation-wise, it was kind of a little quiet for the first half. It seems like the biggest reforms came from the departments themselves. I've had this conversation with Matt Stefanski of Western Mass Politics and Insight, so I feel like I don't want to lift too much from that. I want to give credit. Either way, we saw, like the trash ordinance and fees. That came straight from DPW. I know the alternative electric provider. I'm absolutely mashing this name. That was, I think, Department. And I know Fenton and a few others had been looking to see that come to fruition, and it has. I have to go to a public information session tonight just so I can report on that, I believe. But either way, this last half, though, we've seen Delgado come out swinging with an ordinance to try and get the city to back off of stringent job requirements when it comes to degrees. I believe that passed. We've seen Curran coming out with a housing reform-ish type ordinance trying to classify apartments by size and dimensions. So, I believe he's more or less said the city has dealt with people claiming, oh, this will be a 2-bedroom or 1-bedroom, and it's not even a good studio apartment.
Yes, right. Yep.
So that's we've seen. I'm not saying they're putting these ordinances ahead of an election cycle, but we've seen a lot of these councilors come to light. I will say, though, Delgado has been pretty omnipresent on the tax situation.
Mm-hmm.
I believe he has called out, the lack of dollars being directed towards paying down the coffers. So has Govan and a few other councilors as well. So I guess I'm just trying to profile the incumbents a little bit. Santinello, advocate for the parks, advocate for facilities in the city.
Yeah, and then one of the big things with the parks, too, is obviously the issues with the drugs around playgrounds.
Yeah, that popped right up. Absolutely. Took a meeting with Mayor Sarno for a photo. That was a nice Facebook photo op last week. But besides that, it's we see a lot of returning faces. We see in Latore. The Hearst stuff is fascinating to me. I think within hours of seeing his face, it may have been days, within seeing the city clerk's office posting a Facebook with him turning in his signatures, he was out at the intersection, again, outside of Western New England University, with signs and waving. He's re-energized. He's revved up.
And very active on social media as well.
Very
he has
social.
had some very pointed critiques that he's put out there on social media as well.
Absolutely. Also, sometimes warning residents of when a sweep is coming in terms of, you don't want to get fined for having a car on your front lawn or something like that. I don't see anyone else doing that. But beyond that, there's also kind of the matter of the Attorney General's inquiry investigation that from what I can tell, technically still isn't over. And when you ask Hearst about it, he's pretty direct in, saying what he said a year ago or a year and a half ago, and also saying, ask the Attorney General's office what's going on, which, the AG's office can't comment on these sorts of things. That hasn't stopped City Solicitor Stephen Bonicani saying that they've been in contact with the AG, or the AG's office has been in contact with them earlier this year. That was interesting kind of vague flare-up, and it's quieted down again. But this is all in relation to that security footage of, I believe, a $10 bill being exchanged with some folks coming up to some guy in City Hall. Names elude me, but this is a very interesting race. That's kind of my verbal crutch at this point in time.
Yeah.
I'm not uninterested.
All right, so I'm going to jump ahead in our list here a little bit and bring Tyler into the conversation. He's been sitting here patiently. We'll talk about Chicopee, where there is no mayoral race, but that doesn't mean that there isn't some interest and intrigue. It's not very often that you will find an interesting city collector race, but it seems that we are in the midst of that in Chicopee.
Yeah, no, sorry I've been so quiet. I've been waiting for the Chicopee Holyoke section here. You guys know more about these other coverage areas as I kind of just focus on these. But, one thing it's taught me is what a city collector really is. Correct me if I'm wrong, but most city councilors...
Is your mic on?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Oh, it's just the color. Oh,
yeah,
there's an LED in the bottom of these.
I
mics.
appreciate it.
Turn the light off on that.
I checked before to make sure.
My apologies.
No, you're good. Yeah. I appreciate you asking. There you go.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
On, yeah.
Thank you.
Of course, this is some inside baseball. We have lights on the microphones that you can turn on and off, and we thought that maybe the microphone was off completely. And we wanted to make sure that we weren't going to have Tyler repeat himself.
Yeah, no.
I apologize. As a radio reporter,
I
the mic not being on is the bane of my existence.
Listen, before we started, I saw everyone else's on, and I was like, is this even working? But I was able to hear it. It was recording, but I do appreciate the backup. But, for the city collector race, I mean, if anything else, it's taught me what a city collector is. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but most communities, I think it's a joint position. Treasurer and collector is kind of one role. Mm-hmm. So it's something, and long-time Chicopee city collector Stanley Iwanicki announced he's retiring in October 2024. He announced he's stepping away. He's been serving in that role for 12 years. City clerk has said that he expects a bigger turnout the preliminaries was pretty low, but he knows that this is a pretty big race and important choice for the city. So, it should be interesting, especially for the preliminary. If I'm not wrong, let me just check. The two candidates, Rajesh Raj Shangui, he had 37.5% of the votes, and Sandra Ann Perret, who is serving on the school committee right now, she had 36.3%. So, 1% difference. So, really, that race could go either way.
Now, I don't know if you guys have seen that there's been a little bit of controversy with some things that Perret has said about Sangui. Forgive me if I've mispronounced that. But, how does that color this race?
Yeah, it makes it very interesting. I've had Raj call me a bunch weeks ago about, different, his signs getting stolen throughout the city. I'm sure it happens to many candidates. He's just one that I'm pointing out because he has reached out to me with it. But there's been a lot of false rumors going around about him, that he's not a U.S. citizen, that he's not even a business owner, that he's not even married, and all these things that he's been having to clear up on top of trying to run his campaign that he's been passionate about for months. So that's just been kind of I feel like making this race very interesting in a different way than we've kind of been talking about.
Just to be clear, there's no lack of Raj signs out there in Chicopee.
Yes.
And again, out there early, I've never seen a campaign like that revved up even before a preliminary. Truly, the guy wants the job.
Yeah, no, I've I would see him in Chicopee a lot at events even before he announced his campaign, just because he's a business owner, he's a stakeholder within Chicopee. But ever since, he turned in his papers, I've been asking him, how's it going? And you could just tell from talking to him how passionate it is, how much he wants it. But even I say, how's it going? And he says, well, if I get it, I get it. If I don't, I have other things that I can still help. So, but he's given it his all. And like you mentioned, he has a lot of standout events in Chicopee. They have signs everywhere, but he has mentioned that a lot of signs have been stolen. So
I want to ask, what is his opponent's reasoning for, what is her motivation to seek out this position?
It's an interesting question, and I just did a question and answer with her because she is
which you can find in the Herald, or on thereminder.com.
Exactly, and as I
in 2 weeks.
Yes, exactly, and she is a nurse in a long-time school committee seat. So I was interested to see why she wanted to run for that position, but she just wanted to switch it up. She wanted to focus on the financial accuracy, improving taxpayer accessibility. She fought for a lot of issues on the school committee, but I think she just realized it was time to kind of take on a different role. And she's also passionate about going for the role seriously as well.
Now, Raj is also involved in a ballot question initiative as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, he also proposed a ballot question that the City Council approved back in September about implementing a quarterly tax payment system. This is a non-binding question. It is just to see what the residents think about implementing this system. Right now they have a biannual system that's currently used. But, just to kind of, I guess, cut the middleman in a sense, they just want to see if it is worth their time to see how to implement this system. But first, they want to know what the residents think about it, because if they try to implement this and the residents don't like it, then, they kind of save a little time. So, they think it could be a way to help some of the citizens know just what their payment is going to be on a more quarterly schedule.
Sweet.
Yeah, exactly. Again, something new that I learned that I was not too familiar with, but Raj did present this to the City Council. He had a lot of communities he reached out to, tried to learn a lot about different ways other communities do it, and he thinks this could really benefit Chicopee, and other city councilors had his back. Obviously, they approved it, and now it's up to the residents to hopefully vote and see how they feel.
I think that's interesting too, because I feel like most of the communities in our area are on that quarterly, especially for East Long Meadow area, which is what I'm kind of most familiar with at this point. It seems like every town has a quarterly.
Yeah, that's what I kind of learned from the press release. Was it seemed like Chicopee was in the minority in that sense of they had the biannual still, and I believe this is something that they've talked about in the past or tried to present, but it never gained any steam or traction. So. I'm interested to see what residents say about that one, because from what the city council has said, talking to everyone in their wards, it sounds like something people really want to implement, but we'll see where it goes from there.
Now, there are also some city council races as well. Of course, we mentioned no mayoral race. Everybody seems content with Mayor View.
Yeah.
But especially the at-large city council, you've got 7 candidates vying for 4 spots. You got Frank LaFlamme and Jerry Roy, along with Jessica Avery, Clark Wadowitz, Brian Mendez, John Paquette Jr., and Joel McAuliffe, who was previously on the council. Was he school committee as well? I'm trying to remember.
His wife was on the school
Okay.
committee.
And he also, I believe, ran for state rep against Shirley Arriaga. So he's throwing his hat back into the political ring here. And then we've got a couple of ward races as well. What has struck you with some of these races? Has there been anything that stood out to you in terms of either topics of conversation or things that people have brought up during the campaign?
Honestly, nothing too out of the ordinary, which sounds crazy, at least from my point of view, which probably sounds crazy for any sort of race in our communities.
And compared to some of the other
exactly,
communities.
Exactly. So, maybe I should have went first because this sounds a little more lackluster.
No.
But yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Go ahead.
No. I was going to say if you have anything to add.
No, maybe one thing to know is Fred Krampitz. He's been an incumbent on the city council for I don't know how many years.
Yep.
Do you know why he's not seeking re-election?
He was one of the candidates for city collector.
City collector.
He did not move on from the preliminary, so he, tried for that role,
Yeah.
didn't get it. So now, obviously, he will not be seeking re-election, and we'll have a new face representing that ward.
Great piece of clarification there.
Yes. Thank you. But yeah, besides that, obviously, there's been some turnover. Tim Wagner moved out, away.
Yeah.
And
Timmy.
Yeah, Tim Wagner and I'm so sorry I forget it. Oh, Bob Zagorowski, of course, passed away. He was a longtime city council member. So there's going to be some new faces. Obviously, incumbents still going for their roles as well. Mm-hmm. So I think that's just going to be the most interesting thing to see if those incumbents still have the support or if they're looking for some new faces.
All right, we're going to jump back across the river real quick. We had talked earlier about popular incumbents that were facing challengers. And I think that one of the big ones here, West Springfield has had Mayor Reichelt for 10 years. It's been regularly voted as the best town to live in Western Massachusetts by our partners, Rita Raves at Mass Live. But he's facing a challenge, and a very vocal challenge from Town Councilor Dan O'Brien. So I'm very interested. I've been very interested in this race. There's been a lot, especially Dan and Will going at each other on social media on top of everywhere else. Of course, I think that Will was one of the ones who really embraced social media early on with his videos, and that there's a little bit of an inside joke in our office for a while. It's just like, we just have to wait for Will's video,
Exactly. No, Hampden County's home to 2 terminally online mayors. Reichelt's one of them. I think Joshua Garcia might be the other one.
Yeah. I was going to say...
We have to bring up the Batman picture.
Go ahead. I don't care anymore.
We jumped from... You had to say Joshua Garcia in social media, but I just remember 2 years ago there was a picture of him with like the bat signal photoshopped in the background, and he was dressed as Batman for Halloween.
I know. I'm glad you mentioned Garcia. I didn't want to derail the conversation either, but we'll get to it. Garcia is definitely on social media.
No, for certain, and you know, it speaks to the modern age, and it is very funny to interview Reichelt and O'Brien on a story, and then come home thinking, all right, I got not an exclusive, but I got something that'll be. Then there's a Facebook video later in the night. Like, okay, you know what? That's it's okay. It's all right. It's all right.
It's good. It's fine.
It's good. It's great. But no, I'm extremely interested in this contest, like all the other contests. If you haven't noticed, I've seen the Facebook battles. I've seen the standouts, and I saw the Forum West Side Media broadcast last week and a half ago. O'Brien's been sort of an omnipresent critic of Reichelt over the years. We see him voting no or advocating against things Reichelt usually supports, or at least supports initially. We saw that with the Mitnick school fights. The city, like a lot of townships and cities around this area, are exploring consolidation of their very old elementary schools just because it's so expensive to rehab them.
There's been a lot of that in Longmeadow.
There's been Amherst, and now Northampton. I mean, Belchertown, I think the school committee just approved closing, was it Clearwater? I can't quite remember the name of the elementary school.
Was it Cold Spring?
I believe it was Cold Spring. I have a synonymous memory. It's very...
Tyler and I used to do Belchertown back in the day.
Well, let's... I will fact check that. But either way, there's a lot of that going around. And that's where O'Brien really... he's... Some of these issues, like for example, the council's vote on cannabis sales 2 years ago. He was one of the 3 no votes. This year around, if you've seen a Facebook grievance from the West, I spend a lot of time in the West Facebook groups, but if you see a grievance a lot of West Springfield residents have, chances are O'Brien has touched on it, and it's probably part of his platform. He's had thoughts on the Big E and the amount of traffic it brought last year, and how much the Big E contributes to the city directly. It's been an interesting platform to see take shape. And on the other hand, we have Will Reichelt, who's overseen a city that, like every other municipality, has its challenges, but is, compared to some of these other cities we've talked about, not experiencing issues on like the same wavelength or to the same caliber. The roadways are, the construction projects are fun, but I don't know why I put that emphasis on it the way that I did. But suffice to say, all this came up during the forum, and I'm very eager to hear your thoughts on this contest.
Well, and it's one of those things too. You look at like West Springfield and Agawam. One of the issues that they do not have that every other surrounding community has is school funding.
Yeah,
it seems like every year Agawam, West Springfield, they have a level service budget. No real needs for asking for money or anything. So that's definitely something that I think is interesting to think about. But we spoke with Reichelt at the sheriff's picnic, and one of the things we kind of took away was he didn't really pay much attention to his opponent at that point.
Yeah.
It very much seemed like he's coming up on 10 years, like he's ready to just keep going.
Yeah.
But that has changed. I mean, the tone has changed a bit, I think, when you look at what he's done in social media.
Yeah.
A lot more of it. He's not directly referencing a point that Dan has brought up, but it's been, here's something from Dan, and then the next day or so, you've got something on that issue. Let's talk about this, So he's not actually acknowledging the opponent, but he's acknowledging
there's a subtlety there.
The criticism.
He's very aware that there is somebody that is on every day criticizing him, that is running against him on Facebook without necessarily coming out and saying that there is a person. And then
I think he kind of mentioned that too in the reading the Q&A.
Yeah.
In West Springfield, he didn't address him, but he kind of said like something about how he was being criticized by his challenger.
Yeah.
Now, in the town council, obviously O'Brien is vacating his seat. You've got a couple of other would have been incumbents who are not seeking re-election, in Sean Powers and Brian Clune. So you have 7 candidates who are going for 5 seats, a couple of incumbents, and 5 challengers. So has there been anything that you've seen interesting out of that?
Honestly, from our Q&As and stuff, it seems very much status quo. People are just saying, hey, this is what I want to do. No real shots fired or anything. It just seems like, Understood.
By the way, we've been mentioning these Q&As. If you've been paying attention to the reminder or other reminder papers, those have been the past couple of weeks and leading up to the election. We've been trying to give people as much of a picture of where all of these candidates are coming from and what their viewpoints are. So we recognize some of these are long, but we want to make sure we're giving people as broad a picture of these candidates as possible. So wealth of information there. Great job by our editors and reporters in getting that information out to people. So,
and one thing I definitely want to mention on those, there's been very few races where we haven't heard from all of the candidates. So it's definitely a good way to, if you're in your community, like looking for who to vote for or looking for what these people stand on, to head to thereminder.com and check out those articles.
All right, so I am going to skip ahead now. Now, we have other communities that are having races. We're not covering all of them with this, but I'm going to jump ahead to the last one that we're going to cover today, and that is Holyoke, which has really kind of been a powder keg, which is interesting from the standpoint of this is a city that doesn't have a mayoral race, but it feels like the city council races are almost a referendum on the leadership from the mayor's office.
Yeah, I mean, I've been covering Holyoke for maybe a year or less than a year, but from that first city council meeting, I could tell how contentious, and not to be cliche, but I mean, you could cut the tension with a knife in that room. I mean, it is pretty split with the sides they stand on, you know, who supports who likes who doesn't like who. You know, they've had debates of where their assigned seats are for hours. I mean, they debate about a lot. So when it comes to even important matters in the city, you can imagine how those conversations go. And, you know, Garcia has said to me, and I know a lot of the people at the Reminder, James, I don't know if he's mentioned it as well to you, but he is very pissed off, for lack of a better term, that he has no challenger. He really wanted to be able to, you know, show his work over the past few years, kind of show how passionate he is about Holyoke, how he wants to fix it and, you know, change it for the better. He even opened up a few weeks ago, I covered the story, he opened up an election headquarters, and he has no opponent, which I thought was interesting. You know, he chalked it up to he just still wants to be there for his constituents, the residents. You know, he wants a place for lawn signs and all this stuff. Maybe I was naive, but when I got there, I realized that it was pretty much only one half of the city council, whether they were in a race or not, were there supporting their case or also supporting the candidates who were in a race against the other side of the city council, if you will. So Mayor Garcia is definitely kind of running a lot of the race for the city council and for them. So that has been one of the interesting things from this. And, you know, there's a couple ward races. There's a lot of candidates for the at-large race. And it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out because, like I said, it's pretty divided right now, that city council.
I would be remiss if I didn't bring up that while I have sat for Holyoke City Council meetings that have gone on for hours, and I have seen the exact debates you were talking about, I have never seen an item in EV Council clear as fast as a special permit request for Shermer Horns. And that was the infamous city council meeting in which the arguing got so intense they had to call the whole thing off at one point, and a bunch of items just kind of went to the wayside, and they need an emergency meeting next week. So just to be clear, if seafood is on the line, they will
lock in for
absolutely.
Sure,
and even then, and Garcia is very present on Facebook.
Yep.
So that's how I found out about the Shermer Horns developer schism as well. So that's all it's a flat circle one way or another.
Yeah, and when you mentioned social media before, it's so interesting because, you know, I'll reach out, try and get some quotes from him or time to talk to him about the story, and all of a sudden you'll look on Facebook minutes later and he's got receipts, he's got timelines, he's, you know, especially, it would have been interesting to see if he had an opponent because, I mean, he obviously, you could tell, does his research. But yeah, just him going on social media now. I mean, the big one is, you know, for months they've been trying to pass the Municipal Finance Modernization Act. Garcia presented this. City Council's been going back and forth on this. Obviously, it hasn't been passed yet. And now you can kind of see on Facebook Garcia and City Councilor Kevin Jourdain, who's going for an at-large seat, kind of going back and forth, throwing shots at each other. And, you can see both sides of the City Council kind of joining their side and talking out about it, too. So, there's some other races there. I know, Ward 3, David Bartley's been there for quite some time. He's had his stories, whether it's on the council or not, and
houses sold or houses not sold.
Yeah, exactly. So that will be something interesting as well to see what comes out of that, and really to see what the city council looks like, come November 5th.
It really is interesting. You've mentioned how split it is, but the tribalism that there seems to be, there's always a little bit of that, but it seems like everybody is very, very dug in Holyoke.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, even at other events, when city council will have some time to speak about, even if they're the groundbreaking, you can tell if you're paying close attention to the city council, there's some subtle jabs at other fellow councilmen and councilwomen about another issue. Once they get the mic, they have their time to do that. So we'll see where it goes.
Yeah. I have to ask before we wrap up with this one, the sanctuary city question. Has that played into the election at all, and have you seen kind of people discuss around that?
Great question.
Yeah, that was something that was definitely a contentious debate for months. That was something that Jourdain and Bacon proposed back in June, and it's something that was tabled ever since, and especially over the last month, obviously it came to the surface. It was administratively laid on the table, came back up in subcommittee and city council, and that got them debating again. And it has been something that was, not talked about too much in the Q&As, obviously, because that got settled, and the police chief, the mayor, state reps, everyone came out and told their side of the story. And but yeah, it was something, an actual topic of discussion that was very important to talk about, but they definitely let everything they had to say get out there.
Mm-hmm.
I do think it's interesting too that one of the major and we're talking a lot about Mayor Garcia, and he's not even facing a challenger, so that's interesting in and of itself. But one of the major talking points in this campaign, one of the major debates, is about finance and about management, and that has really been Garcia's bread and butter. I mean, he was the town manager in Blandford.
Yeah.
I believe it was a town manager position. And, so he came in with the background of, this is what I do. And that was really his platform when he went for the job in the first place, was I'll be able to navigate the management of the city. So it's interesting to see that being what is kind of in the crosshairs, is the management of the city.
Yeah, when I was at the headquarters opening, that was something that every incumbent or every challenger, every city councilor who had a moment to talk kind of mentioned how if they were elected, they would want to see that get passed. Because, that's been on the agenda for months now, and it has not gone really anywhere. There's been some tweaks, but for the most part, it's been talked about, discussed, back and forth, and really hasn't gone anywhere since.
All right, so that will wrap this discussion. As we've said, that we can find more and more information about these candidates and their platforms on thereminder.com or in Reminders papers. We also have James and his great work.
Hey, what's up?
And if you want to let people know where they can find you and your work, fire away.
I'll tell you, we have a radio tower up in northern Berkshires, but I feel the 90.3 FM signal is pretty good down here in Hampton and Hampshire. So you can hear me on WAMC News, Northeast Public Radio every so often. And, WAMC.org is where my stories get posted eventually. But either way, the Reminder is a wealth of information. It's always a pleasure to cite you guys one way or another.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I think that this was great, and people listening are going to have a wealth of information and some new perspectives to look at all of this from.
Absolutely.
Lovely.
One thing to mention, too, we didn't touch on these races, but Agawam and Westfield both have races.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead, head to thereminder.com if you want to see information on those races and those candidates. In Agawam, we've been running Q&A since the beginning of the month, so.
Very interesting council races going on over there.
That wraps another episode of So That Reminds Me.
Thanks for listening, and we'll be back with another episode in a couple of weeks.
Thanks for listening to So That Reminds Me, produced by Western Massachusetts news source Reminder Publishing. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, find the latest news at thereminder.com, and follow Reminder Publishing on Instagram at Reminder Publishing, on X at The Reminder MA, and on Facebook. Reminder Publishing, we are hometown news.